Hey everyone, it's Clint. Welcome to Sweetcast. There's a lot to be offended about right now. Everyone should be offended. There's offense all around. Not literally offense, but you're offended. All right, so the big news this week, really, in all of comics, and I looked around to see what else was going on in comics. Honestly, the biggest news is that CyberFrog Blood Honey has been shipped and a lot of people are actually receiving the book. You're starting to hear some reviews come out. The thing is, I haven't received my copy yet. I know it's in the mail, it's coming, but I'll tell you, I cannot trust literally anything that I'm reading online about it. I've got to read it myself in order for me to form an opinion on the book itself. Seems like everybody either hates it or anything to do with it, or they just love it. So I don't know what to believe, but I'll tell you, this is probably not what you should believe. This is Tim Doyle saying, imagine waiting a year past the promised delivery date for a comic book, and when it finally ships, it's badly printed, 20 pages shorter than promised, and not even a complete story. Comicsgate is a scam. It's always been, y'all are rubes. That was a stunning and brave review. Here's another one from Mark Lombardi. He says, I'm amazed to see that a human jar of mayonnaise that has taken 14 months to publish an 80-page comic has the idiocy to call out a far more talented creator for having one issue series canceled. How are you going to rag on one book being canceled when your entire career was canceled? The joke is, the secret is that neither of these are actually reviews. They're just, surrounding the book. Again, I'll find out when I get the book. Here it is. This is actually an addition to the offense. Is this the most offensive comic book as well? That is a question. It's definitely the most talked about. Is it the most offensive comic book? I'm going to be looking through it for any kind of misogyny, homophobia, racism, anything like that, because someone has to do it. In the meantime, though, I just can't help myself. I got another comic here. I got the Salamandroid variant. So I've got the team up, the black and white Salamandroid, and I'm really looking to get my hands on the chromium cover. No doubt, I've been talking about this with several people lately, and that is, when you're doing these comics on Indiegogo, it's kind of insane how much scrutiny you're going to get. My campaign was relatively small compared to these massive campaigns. Even still, I'm already feeling the pressure. We've got 7 pages left to do for the interior art. I'm preparing the script for lettering, and the whole time I'm just like, you start to feel the pressure. I can only imagine the kind of scrutiny that any of these big campaigns are getting. It is kind of insane. And yet none of this has been spoken about in any comics press as of yet. I'm still waiting for the Bleeding Cool article to come out, or any of their mainstream comics reviews to review this. It is, no matter how you feel about Ethan Van Sciver, this legitimately is news in comics. Now, if you thought this was the most offensive thing you've seen in or around or adjacent to comics.
Justin Warner here with Rodney Henry from Marvel's Wolverine: The Lost Trail, and today we're gonna eat the universe.
Well, you'd be wrong. There's a whole lot more to be upset about. I looked at this article, and that's from Sci-Fi Wire, no surprise. Can you still like old comics? Old offensive comics? Wow, not just that. Old, offensive, and problematic comics. I should have read the headline more clearly. That's triply bad. And industry pros are going to tell us how we should feel about it. So this is a little gander actually to New York Comic Con from last year, and it is interesting to see how things have changed. New York Comic Con is upon us, but let's see how things have changed over the years, and if there are in fact more offensive comics. Horribly offensive is how Saladin Ahmed described a lot of old comics from the 40s and 50s. Near the beginning of the old classics, new voices, diverse creators rate the comics canon. That's not all of it though. Ahmed, who is writing Marvel's Miles Morales Spider-Man series that debuts this December, said that some pre-Comics Code books were just bizarre, while others were almost what we would call radical feminist stuff. So which is it? Have comics always been extremely progressive, or have they been problematic? I don't understand how they can be both at the same time. Or perhaps it's just like other media, and not one ideology has claim to it or can own it. Here's a comic called Crimes by Women. I wonder if this is public domain. I am really curious. That would be kind of funny to revamp this one. Ahmed said, I learned how much stuff got erased. Crimes by Women was an imperfect exception though. Stuff with people of color is a lot more hit and miss, Ahmed said. Even so, he was hardly alone in expressing having some complicated feelings about classic comics. This is the big issue that I take here. Now, there's got to be some understanding that times have changed. They always change. And you can look back at comics and appreciate them for what they were. You can understand what they were. You don't have to have them reflect your exact morals and values to this day. It's really not a game you should be playing, because in 10 years from now, are you going to look back at the current comics? Are you going to look back at comics maybe even you helped create and lament about how problematic they are? You can see how this in and of itself is just a slippery slope. It's a bad idea. Just look at them, appreciate them for what they are. You can read them and enjoy them through the lens of history. None of it needs to be erased. We don't need to be burning books. Okay, can you admire Frank Miller's iconic Daredevil run while also feeling like some of his other works like 300 were racist or otherwise problematic? Yeah, man. You can just enjoy things. You don't have to agree 100%. You can actually even just enjoy certain titles from certain comic creators, writers, artists, and not enjoy other works. That's just fine. This is why cancel culture does not apply retroactively. It doesn't work. And in fact, it doesn't work in the present. It's like when I hear people say that Mark Twain's books were problematic for some reason. Just acknowledge that it exists, and then you can move on. You don't have to square it with all of your moral reasoning. In fact, if you really dug into things, you're going to be really disappointed because not everything is going to agree with you. Okay, here's another quote here. It's this weird stealth feminist comic from someone who probably wouldn't identify this way, Downey said. This is another hard thing for people to believe, and that is that you can write something as a writer. You can write something from a different perspective. It's not just your perspective. This is a myth that keeps getting perpetuated. People keep talking about so much that you can only write characters that look, feel, and think like you. Part of being a writer is being able to get out of your own head and into a character's head. And so that is not what we call problematic or revealing. It's actually just good writing. Here's one. Here's a quandary to keep you up at night. They say contrast helps. Ahmed said when an audience member asked for help grappling with their problematic fave, the 1970s Wonder Woman comics, where Diana loses her power and becomes a fashionable kung fu girl. While the culturally appropriating comic was bad on a lot of levels, it was at least an example of a strong independent woman, albeit one that writer Denny O'Neil would much later apologize for, saying, "I thought I was on the side of feminism." And here's the quote for you. "For all its flaws, that run is still sadly better than average." Again, things are only going to change. Public perception is only going to change. If you enjoy something, but you still disagree with certain tenets of it, but you're able to, you just enjoy it, just enjoy it. You don't have to square this. It's not like it's some life-changing moral foundation for you. It's a comic book, for crying out loud. Here we go. Here's a quote for you. "That's just a product of the time. Yes, but that doesn't mean it's okay, and it's still influencing things today." So what is the answer? If something was okay or acceptable in the past and now it's not okay, how do you solve that problem? Do you burn the book? Do you erase the creator's name from any kind of recognition or history? Do you tear down statues? Do you defame or forever vilify any of these comic creators that were involved with any of these books? That is not a route you want to go down, again, because in 10, 20 years, it might be you and your book that is being erased from history. Can't we just allow it to be and move on? Okay, here we go. There are separate lines for what I will and won't read, and what I will and won't recommend, and what I will and won't recommend people spend money on. Recommending problematic comics responsibly takes more information than there's room for in 280 characters. Two things here. One, everybody that reads comics or any kind of a medium and they enjoy entertainment has a list of books that they're willing to share and they want to recommend, and other ones that they don't care for and they're not going to recommend. Unless you're saying that these unrecommendable books are some kind of guilty pleasure for you that you would never mention in public that you actually enjoy or recommend, but you're still going to just quietly enjoy them and feel bad about yourself as you do it. It's kind of weird. Second thing is, how do you recommend problematic comics responsibly? What is the worst that could happen, honestly, if somebody reads a comic book that they don't like? Trust me, I have read many, and they're not being published a long time ago. They're being published today. It is offensive when comic books speak down to me and when they're just boring, and I wish I didn't waste my money on it. How do you solve that problem? You just don't recommend the book because you don't like it. The problem is when you secretly like the book, but you don't want to share it with anybody because you don't want to be seen as a terrible person. To me, that signifies a problem with culture. And here's another great quote. I want there to be a secret going up table for problematic faves mailing list, he added. How long is that going to last? There's going to be this secret society of people who are self-hating, that they don't like anything problematic, but they secretly love these problematic comics that they're going to share with each other under the understanding that they're all terrible. How long before you get shut down? And if you're on that mailing list, you will be canceled. Just wait, it's going to happen. Okay, and then here's a good reminder. Thanks to the audience member's question, the panel ended with an important reminder that even though there are a lot of comics that history needs to atone for and grapple with, the work isn't done. When will the work be done? That's my question. And why is it called work? It's not work. Just if a comic offends you, just don't read it. That's it. You don't have to lament your existence. You don't have to hate yourself. If you like the book and you think it might be offensive to some people, just like the book. It's okay. This is like the weirdest kind of Alcoholics Anonymous meeting that you get together and discuss loving old comics and being also really disappointed in yourself for loving them. It's just such a weird concept. I really hope that this kind of panel happens again this year for New York Comic Con, because, you know, we need more stuff to be offended about.
About a crawfish boil is that it can be a little messy. So we're gonna add some structure. How do you feel about this?
I really like this now.
So, do you want to be our claw model? You can.
He's asking me
Yes, you're going to be our claw model.
to be the model.
Yes. Yeah. Consider it blocking. We're just blocking. Oh, beautiful.
Man, they stretched the cringe out so far. So hey, thanks for listening to the video. I really appreciate it. Let me know in the comments below what comics offend you and what do you do when comics do offend you. I just got to give a shout out to Ethan Van Sciver. That is really great that he's shipped out CyberFrog Blood Honey. I'm excited to get my copy, and I will give you a review as soon as I get it. Don't forget to like, subscribe, all that good stuff. Make sure you're still subscribed, ring the bell. And oh yeah, by the way, Downcast is going to be ending pretty darn soon with the in-demand store. So if you haven't picked it up yet, please check it out in the description below. Really, really appreciate it, and I'm excited to get it into your hands. Thanks very much, and I'll see you next time.